Welcome back, my friends, and thank you for joining your girl Anna B for another episode Behind the Walls. Here I am again, coming live from the kids' playroom, taking over just a little bit, but hey, they won't know, they're in school. So let's start with an update, y'all. Folks are still pulling up on the Tasha Martin video that I did back in May of this year. Rest in peace to the beautiful baby girl, Jamaria Sessions. I send much love, many blessings to her family. I hope all is well with them, and they're doing much better these days. I know it's a day at a time, but I hopefully her little sisters are still in good hands with their family. Now, folks are like, Anna, what is going on? We need an update. You didn't give us all this information and we ain't seen nothing else. That's because, y'all, there's nothing going on. I sent the email to the sheriff's office asking for any disciplinary reports or incident reports that she's obtained between May and September. There were no responsive records. Far as her court case, the docket is pretty much blank. She's not going to court. So it has it like attorney represented. Their attorneys are going to court, and I don't even dare appearing in the courtroom because it's marked as like a conference. And every time it just gets rescheduled, and it actually says that the defendant was not present. So there was one motion filed as well as a ruling made by the judge on that motion early September, sometime around the 15th, 16th, I believe. But it was sealed. So I'm wondering if they are hush mouth. What are they doing? Going back and forth, trying to see if they're going to give her a plea deal. But please believe, if anything is to happen, I will let you know because I check it like I check my email. Now, in this video, let's get to it because I'm running it back. Any of my day ones, or if you're new here and have gone down to look at previous videos that I've done, you know, Anna B reaches out to, or I have reached out to some women that are incarcerated serving life. Now, why? Because I'm nosy and I want to know if they're going to tell me the things that we want to know. You know, when we're looking at these cases, these questions come to mind like, how, why, when? And I think these are questions that no court record, a judge or prosecutor can answer. It should come directly from the source, right? So I have a collection. I've actually been sitting on some correspondences that I had with several women that are behind the walls. I kind of put a stop to reaching out because I'm not going to make it cute. I'm going to just be straight up honest with you. I'm not looking to make no friends, for one. And for two, the victim, a lot of them still want to play victim, and the real victim can't speak for themselves. So that pissed me off, and I just was like, forget it. I'm not putting this out here. I'm leaving it alone, and I went another direction. But I'm like, well, I did it for a reason, so we might as well get it out there, right? So in this video, I reached out to 4 women. Two are in Arkansas, 2 are in Kentucky. An email to all of them. It was the same email. I asked questions regarding their life prior to their crime, their adjustment to serving their prison sentences, you know, other things like maintaining relationships. You'll see once we get in the video. Now, remember I said about them playing victim. There is definitely a victim in this video. Watching the video, if you enjoy the content, please hit that thumbs up. It definitely helps my video reach more people across the world, and that means more friends in the BTW family. Again, I appreciate all of you guys' love, support, and engagement. You all be good. Now let's get into it. 22-year-old Wendell Jones was taken from this world on January 27th of 2016 inside his Westport Road townhome in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Wendell's death was referred to as a very coordinated effort of individuals seeking money, drugs, or both. Wendell was in his home with another gentleman when he answered his front door. He was shot at close range in his chest. The other man that was inside was not involved at all. Talia Woods and 4 others were arrested and indicted for Wendell's untimely death. On January 26, 2016, a robbery was planned. The plan was for 2 females, Monty Lopez Oliveira and Victoria Lambert, to go to Wendell's house under the pretense of buying marijuana. And then they were to text Talia Woods how many people were inside the townhome. After the text was sent, Talia, along with 2 17-year-old males, Taheem Taylor and Braylon Buckler, made their entrance inside. Just after midnight, they were armed with a baseball bat, a knife, and a loaded shotgun. They were wearing gloves and masks. A fight ensued, and they were all fighting with Wendell until Talia picked up the shotgun and shot Wendell. They fled the scene, heading to Victoria's home, where they cleaned the shotgun and destroyed their phones. It took about 4 months of police work to arrest all suspects. The state sought the death penalty for Talia and chose to try the 2 juvenile males as adults. But nobody would stand trial. All of them entered pleas with the state, who said that the plea agreements offered were based on each person's level of involvement. Monty Lopez Oliveira, who was 20, agreed to testify in exchange for a 20-year sentence with parole eligibility after serving 4 years. She has since been released after serving 9 years behind those walls. She began her parole supervision on September 2nd, 2025. Victoria Lambert, also 20, when she pled guilty to facilitation to commit murder and first-degree robbery. She received a 10-year sentence. She had also agreed to testify. She, too, has since been released. There are no longer any DOC records available online for her. Taheem Taylor and Braylon Buckler, who were juveniles, also pled guilty and received 20-year sentences. They will be eligible for parole after serving 85% of the sentence, which I think is about 17 and a half years, somewhere in there. Lastly, Talia Woods accepted a term of life in prison with parole eligibility after 20 years for her role. She admitted in court to being the shooter and that she had obtained the shotgun from someone else and purchased the ammunition. Talia Woods, now 29 years old, is housed at the Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women. Her parole eligibility date is December 12th of 2037. The biggest challenge I have with my time is the fact that I'm stuck in this world and everything else on the outside is moving forward. I have to watch my family grow from far and not be able to create those bonds that family should have, because everything is limited being in here. Then there's the guilt of my selfish actions destroyed someone's family along with my own and the other people that was involved. I cope with my emotional and mental challenges, probably not the best always, because I didn't know I had any until being locked up. But either I go to someone I trust and vent to them, or I work out and try to distract myself from it all. I keep hope alive with God by my side. I'm not very religious, but I'm very spiritual. I trust in my God and His will that He will lead me to the path that I'm supposed to be on at the end. I can't question why things happen. I have to understand that everything happens for a reason and learn from my mistakes. I maintain relationships with my friends and family by phone calls and visits. My mama rocks with me all the way through, and without her, I wouldn't be able to do this time. I don't call everyone, but I stay in touch with my mom at least twice a week, and through her, I connect with the rest of my family. The reforms and changes I believe should happen in the criminal justice system is the fact that the men have so much more offered to them. It seems men get a lot of warnings, but soon as a female makes the same mistake, we get the worst. Also not seeing the case, but seeing the person when going up for parole. I'm not the same person I was when I did my case, and the way I think is so much more different. To the point, if I knew what I know now, I'd never be inside these gates. Life before this, I had a full-time job. I was just caught up in the street life more. Before I was 18, I always wanted to go into the Air Force and become a pilot and go to college to be a dentist. Being here, I've changed a lot. I've grown as a person. I'm now more understanding, and I now think before I react. I've become more in tune with myself too, and learned not to judge people, and that the ones you never talk to on the outside could be the ones that relate more with you. The biggest misconception people have with my situation is they judge by what is wrote about me, not truly who I am. I was young, and I felt like I needed to help everyone come up and pertain this image. It was a robbery gone wrong when I only did it for my co-defendants, not myself, because I didn't need for nothing. In my future, I see myself home with my family, trying to fix everything I broke. The message I'll give to people in my shoes is never lose hope, always strive for better, and learn throughout the journey seeing what God is trying to tell you. There was not much information that I could find, and unfortunately not even a picture on the victim of this next case. Madeline Hannaford was indicted upon the offenses of robbery in the first degree and complicity to commit murder by aiding and assisting Jeffrey Allen in the killing of Larry Keith Goins. Madeline actually accepted a plea and pled guilty to first degree robbery and complicity to commit murder. In exchange, she received a sentence of life without parole for 25 years. The victim, Larry Goins, was 39 years old, and he had been missing since May 9, 2001. His remains were found in early June in the Rockholes area of Whitley County, Kentucky. Madeline's co-defendant, Jeffrey Allen, pled guilty to murder and first-degree robbery. He was sentenced to 25 years imprisonment without the possibility of parole as well. Both appealed in an attempt to argue that their guilty pleas were not voluntarily entered. However, they had no success. Hello, Anna B. I would like to answer number 3 before 2. The question was, what do I think was the biggest misconceptions people have about me and my situation? I feel as though I have been placed in a box and judged as this bad person because of my crime. That's understandable to the ones who read the paper and state an opinion. But I'm talking about those who lived with me, family members, co-defendant, my own kids, boyfriends. If I was such a bad person, why was you living in my house when all these bad things were happening? And then I came to prison at age 33, wild as a bobcat. I'll be 57 this year, and now I'm a tamed feline. And I've been told by my latest ex, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I got news for everyone. I'm very teachable and brand new, learning to live a whole new lifestyle, a whole new way of life. And it's good and positive. It's not going to be about drugs or alcohol or crime or negativity, jail or prison. Once I'm out of here, I'm free of this and I'm never looking back. I have spent almost 24 years of my life working on me, changing me, and even now there's still people I love that says to me, I'm not good enough and I'll never be anything, like my daughters and the man I once called the only one. That close-knit group of people I look to for love and support who always dragged me down, I never had no one but myself at the end of the day. I'm going to prove to society I'm a part of the working force. I want to come out and help people who I was once like, get my degrees now and work in some sober living centers or rehabs and help people, give back to society what I've took. Tell my story, share my love and concern. I'm a changed woman. Prison saved my life. I was 33 when I got locked up. My girls were 6 and 8 years old. I have no contact with them now, their choice. They were adopted by foster parents who would eventually turn them both against me. I have 5 grandchildren that doesn't even know me. They call her Granny. My girls were born in 1992 and 1994 as Barbara Sue Puckett and Christina Marie Hannaford. She, Pamela's stepmommy, renamed them. I can count on one hand how many times I have talked to Tina in 23 years, but Barbara, I haven't heard her voice since she was 8 years old. Dawn Wands was facing the death penalty back in 2009 after both of her small children passed away. Arkansas Human Services allowed law enforcement 60 days to prove that the death of Dawn's 18-month-old son, Lewis, was a homicide. During those 60 days, Dawn's infant daughter, Annabelle, was in foster care. Lewis passed away August 7th of 2009. Unfortunately, the toxicology report wasn't released within those 60 days, so Annabelle was returned to her mother due to lack of evidence. The state medical examiner told ABC News that while there was a suspicious element about Lewis's death, at the time there was no definitive indication from his autopsy report that there had been any foul play. 11 days after, Annabelle was returned back to the care of her mother, Dawn. On October 13, 2009, the 7-month-old was dead. Annabelle's death changed the circumstances entirely. Her brother's death now rests on the fact that her death was ruled a homicide by the medical examiner. 5 months later, Dawn was arrested on March 12, 2010 in Louisiana on 2 warrants for capital murder. Only after Annabelle died were authorities able to review the evidence and piece together what happened to the children. Autopsies performed on both of the children at the state crime lab found that Louis Wines died of complications of cardiac arrest due to suffocation, and Annabelle also died of suffocation. Dawn's estranged husband told local news that she had been prescribed antidepressants for postpartum depression. When she became pregnant with Annabelle, doctors took her off of the medications and she seemed fine and wasn't showing any signs of depression at all. Dawn had confessed to being responsible for the deaths of her children, but despite her confession, an automatic not guilty plea was entered on her behalf because she was facing the possibility of the death penalty. But September that same year, 23-year-old Dawn pled guilty to 2 lesser counts of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. Hi Anna, I just received your email. I appreciate your interest in getting a perspective on an extremely sensitive project. I can say that after being here 14 years, it has been a difficult journey, but over time has been made a bit easier by my choice to live easier. My life before coming here was what you call normal. I grew up in a good family and didn't have any big problems other than teenage rebellion. When I lost my mother at 16 years old, I turned to drugs to cope. That was the beginning of my road to a life unwanted. I moved to Arkansas from Louisiana to try to get away from how I was living. While living here, I met my now ex-husband, who became my dependent because I was addicted to pills. We moved back to Louisiana where I became pregnant. Even as a family-oriented woman, I felt stuck because I was young and naive. I married Joshua when my son was 8 months old, and I was pregnant with my daughter. As a young mother, I was overwhelmed and unprepared for a life of motherhood. I was coping the best I knew how, which led me back to my addiction of pills. While under the influence, my actions caused me to lose my son and my daughter, 10 weeks apart. I left Arkansas and tried to rebuild my life back in Louisiana, only to find hardships and find that I couldn't run from my mistakes. I was arrested months later under 2 counts of capital murder and extradited back to Arkansas to face reality. I was unaware of any workings of the justice system and believe I was done wrong through the courts and sentencing. Getting into a little bit of what it's like to be a woman with life, I never thought I'd ever be here. I moved to Arkansas after Katrina in 2006 to attend college in Magnolia at ASU. My brother relocated there after Katrina. I was also trying to get away from the addiction of drugs I found myself with. Little did I know, I just replaced one addiction for another. College never happened. I became pregnant but felt stuck, so married for convenience. Young and overwhelmed, my life wasn't what I pictured. When I got arrested after leaving Arkansas and going back to Louisiana, I knew my life was over. Originally, I was without a lawyer until my dad contacted the governor and I finally got a court-appointed attorney out of Little Rock. Arkansas was seeking the death penalty, so I took the first plea bargain given because I was unaware of much of the law. My capital murder charges were dropped to first degree and I was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. It took years to adjust to life behind bars, and boy was I angry. I didn't know how to handle this life I created for myself. There were several suicide attempts over the years, the last being in 2016. I have built a relationship with God, and though it's not easy, I have found purpose in here. I'm able to help others only because others have helped me along the way. Still have moments where I question what I'm doing and what my future will hold, but I trust that God is working far beyond what I can see. The same day McKenna Belcher's stepdaughter passed away from her injury she sustained from blunt force trauma that was caused by extreme force, She was arrested, charged with her death. McKinley Cawley died on April 2nd, 2019. Her father, Everett, was married to McKenna. He, too, faced charges. Everett Cawley ultimately pled guilty to first-degree murder and 2 counts of permitting the abuse of a minor. He was sentenced to 40 years for murder and 6 years on each of the 2 counts of permitting the abuse of a minor. 1 count for each of his children he failed to protect. In May of 2021, McKenna pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of first-degree murder. She's another woman featured in this video who escaped the death penalty by pleading guilty. She was sentenced to life without parole. Sharing my story? Well, I'm not afraid to tell you anything you wish to know. I just think that if you want to know my personal journey or the circumstances that led me here, then you need a background, a middle, and a beginning to be able to accomplish telling or shedding light on my journey and experience. In answer to one of your questions, coping. With a life sentence, it has its own personal challenges for each person serving it, I think. Me personally, I don't want to be bogged down by anger, dragged under it, or turned into some bitter and miserable person. I have seen too many women here who hold on to that control they wish to lord over those weaker than they are. And I'm not afraid to say that I have been one of the weaker ones. So ready to oblige because in here, it's a fight for your life. I had to find out the hard way and how to adapt, to relearn, and to react to situations that meant survival. To let crap blow over, to please, to peacekeep, to constantly regulate my reactions, thoughts, and emotions, because if you don't, people use that and feed off of it. Prison is definitely a whole world within itself. In these situations, you break down and hit rock bottom over and over again. You feel it, walls crumbling until you're free falling. The feelings you try to hide from everyone come crashing in on you in an unstoppable force. You feel like just another number, losing your name completely. You fade in here. People you thought loved you or said they'd never leave, disappear and leave you, feeling less than nothing. This life, these feelings, I wish on no one. To know why things ended the way they did, I'm going to give you a short background. I remember a few memories of my biological mother, none of my father. My first memories consist of starving, experiencing abuse and abandonment. I then was adopted by this Christian family at 6 years old, whom raised me until I was 19. However, with them I also experienced physical, mental, sexual, and spiritual abuse. And everything I endured, I was told was my fault. Experiencing each of these things, I realized what I didn't want. But because it was what I knew, I fell into it anyway. My first relationship lasted 5 years. As you can imagine, more abuse. My second relationship was verbal, but I believe just as bad, only lasted a year. My last relationship is why I am here today. I didn't know my co-defendant was in a mental institution prior to my meeting him because he heard voices in his head to kill. I found most of these things out a year into my incarceration. He was in the Army and was discharged. I'm not sure for what. And he was a kickboxer. You'll actually find him on YouTube. I'm only telling you this because I also believe you need a personal background on him as well. Though I'm sure if you wanted, you could look all this up. In the end, he was charged. I'm not sure the 40 years he received is enough time after taking someone's life. However, who am I to judge? I may not have committed the act of murder, but I do feel guilty that I am alive and my stepdaughter McKinley is gone. I struggle with the whys, what ifs on a daily, and I can't put myself in a mindset of an abuser, murderer. My crime is not standing up to my abuser, and I still believe to this day that if I did say something, no matter if I was in custody, he'd somehow kill me too. I wouldn't change not saying anything, but since my daughter is old enough to speak, I'm not afraid to speak up. I actually have been wanting to, but I didn't know how or where to start. I have never been in trouble before and honestly quite scared of everything in the beginning. I was on suicide watch for 60 days after I heard that McKinley passed. I didn't want to live, and to this day, I still wish I was dead too. This isn't a life I wish to live. I have an amazing support team in my life, family and friends, but that doesn't seem to be enough. I used to cut to feel something in my life because I felt numb in the beginning, like this couldn't possibly be real. Some days I still feel this way, and I'm sure I'll have many more. I was afraid to speak up against my abusers, and it cost me a great deal. And I'm not sure this experience will ever cleanse me of my fear, and I wonder if I will continue to live half a life because of it. Fear controls me. To me, that's not too much of a choice or a life I want to live by. And I do have plenty of good memories, but somehow they seem to be overshadowed by everything bad that has happened to me. I have some fond memories of my childhood as well as with my stepkids before incarceration.